And that's so that any members that are unable to join will post this this presentation and overall meeting the Slack channel. Could I ask anyone that's not talking to put your mic on mute just to limit the background noise? Thanks very much. So I think everyone here knows my name is Tom Bauman, and I co-chair the Climate Change Coalition along with Massamba Thioye, who is his day job's with the UN Climate Change Secretariat. And I'll just do a quick introduction for today's 90-minute event, which is going to be in two parts. So part one will be a keynote presentation by Massamba, and he'll speak for between 20 and 30 minutes, we think, on the topic of digital technologies for innovative climate action. And I emphasize that because we hear regularly digital innovations, but there's also other forms of innovations, such as more innovative climate actions themselves. And so I'm very much looking forward to his presentation. It'll be followed by a question and answer session. We can give ourselves as much time as you'd like before then going into part two of today's web meeting, which is an open session for members. This is our first members call of the year, so I'm sure there's many issues that can get raised, but at the first part of that second session is an update on some of the events planning, forthcoming newsletter, and the coalition publication that Alexei Shadrin has been leading up. This will be the second bulletin. Did one about 6 months ago or so. If I could ask everyone before I hand it over to Massamba to use the chat tool as a means to raise your issues. We'll try to get to them throughout the the call today. That way I can facilitate the speaker and mic for folks. Okay, so I can see Massamba's sharing his presentation. I think you're on the presenters mode, Massamba, because we can see both the title, the main slide and the next one. So I think you should be pressing the presentation mode. Yeah, I'm not sure which one of those it is. And whenever you're ready, feel free to start. I think you might have multiple. No, this is you might have multiple monitors. We're looking at the GoToMeeting web page, so you might have to share a different monitor. How's it going?
I think I have lost okay, so that's fine now. Are you seeing now the right screen?
I don't see a screen being shared, but that's just on my side. Let me see here. Well, you still have presenter rights.
And now?
Perfect.
Okay, great. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Very pleased to have this opportunity to share with you some ongoing work that could be relevant to the climate change coalition. One of the main purpose of this interaction is to be able to share with you some of the work we are doing, but also some of the work we think could be extremely relevant to the work that members of the Climate Change Coalition are doing. And what we are always trying to do is to be proactive and visionary and share with you signal that are, let's say, providing some hint of what would be in the future that could be relevant to our work. So right at the beginning, what I can say is that it's clear that the intersection between digital innovation and climate change is forward-looking. This is the future, because there are many things that are ongoing on climate change. It will be just extremely challenging to tackle them and address them if we do not leverage a digital technology to serve addressing this type of issue. Let me try to see whether, yeah. So this is the table of content. My presentation will be articulated around 4 main elements. The first, I would like to discuss quickly the barrier to innovation for climate. So innovation is going on, applied to economy and social, but it seems that the use of innovation to address climate change is a little bit slow in being scaled up, and I will try to discuss what are the main barriers that are preventing the full use of innovation to serve climate.
Massamba, if I may inform you that we are seeing still the title slide of your presentation.
Okay, so this is always sometimes the problem that is happening. Okay. Are you seeing now this? Yeah.
Now it's
fine. Are you
fine.
seeing? Yeah, you are seeing the second slide now.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So first we'll discuss the barrier to innovation, and then we will discuss how we could expand the innovation space for climate change. And then we will discuss the consumption-based approach to GHG accounting, which is a new way of seeing GHG accounting, and that will rely very deeply on digital technology. And finally, we will discuss a reform green bond framework that need also to be powered by digital technology. So some element for discussion. The current NDCs, the nationally determined contribution, will lead by 2030 to a GHG emission reduction of 1.5% compared to 2010 GHG emission, while a reduction of 45% is needed. So you see there is a big gap between the level of ambition as expressed in the current NDCs that have been published by government and where they are expected to be, where they need to be aligned with the 1.5 degree goal. The NDC that cover the period from now up to 2030 should lead in average to GHG emission reduction of 45% compared to the 2010 level of GHG emission. Yet they are only at 1.5% of reduction. So we see a huge gap, and this is clear that this gap can only be filled by innovation. Another aspect that is important also to flag is that although there are some longer term pledge to be net zero by 2050, we have seen some countries as well as some corporate making longer term pledge. They mostly are based on CCS and offset. So most of the time people will say, okay, I will be net zero, but I will use CCS, or I will be net zero because I will offset most of my emission. And it's clear that this cannot be a reliable solution, because what if CCS does not work? What if CCS is not at the commercially available? What if it is still too expensive? And the issue of offset, if you want to be net zero, we will not have enough possibility of offsetting if everybody wanted to become net zero. There are also many longer term low emission development strategy, but they are not most of them are not fully aligned with the climate goal, and they are not using low energy demand scenario. Again, here, there are countries saying we will do X, Y, Z, but then most of the time this is using scenario with a lot of CCS or a lot of offset. So in short, there is no demand to stimulate the development of climate solution. And this is a very important point, because the way government are trying to address climate change is problematic, because their level of ambition is based on what is currently possible. So the starting point for the development of the nationally determined contribution is for countries to look around what are the technologies that are available, what are the policies that are available, what are the business models that are available, and what are the financial instruments that are available. And on the basis of these available tools, they develop their nationally determined contribution. We think that there is a need to change the mindset. The starting point should not be what is possible or even what is desired, but the starting point should be what is needed. And this is precisely the gap between what is needed and what is possible, or the gap between what is needed and what is desired, that can stimulate innovation. This is actually what can power and drive innovation for climate. So just to summarize this part, we consider that we do not have clear demand for climate solution, simply because the ambition are set based on what is possible and not based on what is needed. And this is the gap between what is needed and what is possible that should drive innovation for climate. So this is a very important aspect that need to be addressed. So this is why we are taking an approach that is a little bit different. Number one, we want to start from what is needed rather than what is possible, knowing that the gap will be filled by innovation. But also we want to change the perspective, the way innovation is used for climate. So we want to move from what I would call sector-based, problem-oriented approach to a need-based, solution-oriented approach. So the way climate action is working now, and the way innovation for climate is working, there are regulation, there are policies, there are incentive instruments that are put in place, and the GHG emitters, to be in compliance with this regulation and policies, will undertake research and try to innovate for the purpose of being in compliance with these rules, regulation, and policy. So what it means is innovation is taking place at the sectoral level within corporate to address a problem. And the problem is the GHG emission. So all the innovation activities that are ongoing are focused at the sectoral level. So for example, if you take the cement sector, the corporate in the cement sector will try to address one question: how to reduce or remove the emission, and how to decarbonize the cement sector. So this is what I call a sector-based and problem-oriented approach to innovation, because the entire focus is on the emission. So it's why all the research and development, all the innovation activities, and all the solution will focus on trying to reduce the carbon footprint of cement. And this is extremely limited. This is very limitative. So they will look at how do we change the process? How do we try to be more energy efficient? How do we change the input? How do we change the energy sources? Or how do we use CCS for emission sequestration? Or how do we plant tree? The only problem is how to reduce the emissions so that the carbon footprint of cement will decrease. So this is currently the focus of innovation and R&D. Now, what we want to do is to shift this mindset, although it's important and it needs to be kept, but this is very limitative, and we would like to expand the innovation space to cover other aspects that maybe are more transformative, in the sense that they will deeply and more broadly impact the way we are doing things. So instead of looking things at the sector side, at the corporate side, the question we are asking is, why don't we focus innovation and R&D at the consumption side, at least to expand innovation? We can keep what is actually ongoing at the corporate side, but also add this new dimension that is more focusing on the consumption side. So instead of focusing on how do we decarbonize the cement sector, the question will be formulated differently. The question will be, how do we satisfy the core and enabling need of the user of cement? What cement is it used for? And do we have alternative way of satisfying in a sustainable manner what cement is used for? So it's what we call a need-based and solution-oriented approach to innovation. So for example, the focus here could be on enabling need and solutions that can disrupt the cement sector, like for example, the possibility of replacing cement with sustainable wood for construction. One approach could be to say, okay, yes, reducing the carbon footprint of cement is good, but what if we just displace cement and disrupt the entire value chain of cement and replace cement with sustainable wood? Or even we can say, why do we need building? Why do we need shelter? And then we will say we need it for our home, but also we need it for office. And then another question is to say, why don't we use digital technology like now, what we are doing, to reduce the space needed for shelter? Because currently with the COVID, there are many people now working from home, and it actually showed that this is something possible. So we can even ask the question, why do we need all this surface for shelter for office? Why don't we use digital technology to replace the need for shelter? So, and this type of question can be raised not only for the core need related to shelter, but also it can be raised for some other core needs such as access. So for example, currently the focus is on moving from combustion car to EV car, but I don't think that this is fully addressing the issue. Why do we need car? We need car because we want to enhance our mobility. But why do we need to be mobile? We need to be mobile because we want to have access to things. So then the question is, why don't we design cities in a more compact and then in a more complete manner, so that we do not need that much mobility, and we have everything accessible without having to move. So here the question is to start from the core need we want to satisfy: the need of access, the need of shelter, the need of nutrition, the need of health, and try to see how best we can satisfy that core need in a way that is aligned with the 1.5-degree goal. So it opens a lot of space, it expands the space of innovation, because we are not just trying to reduce the carbon footprint of a product, but we are also exploring possibility to disrupt the market and value chain. So here I have represented how the innovation space for climate will be expanded. So you can see here the black part of this diagram is what we are doing currently. So currently, the focus is on the source of emission. We are trying to reduce the carbon footprint, and we are also focusing on the problem in the existing sector. So the first thing is to broaden the scope from only focusing on problem to also look at provider of solution. So how we can find solution to satisfy alternative solution to satisfy the need cement is satisfying, and then how do we move from sector-based to a need-based. So another aspect that is also very important, because innovation is taking place at the corporate level, it is done in silo, which cannot work. What we strongly believe is that if we want to achieve the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement, we need to have a more multidimensional approach for climate solution that require cluster to work on the solution, because the right solution will have a policy dimension. We will need to have climate policy solution. We will need to have climate technology solution. We will need to have climate financial instrument solution, as well as innovative business model to support the implementation of the long-term goal, the achievement of the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement. So to summarize, the scope for innovation for climate is very narrow currently, because it is only focusing on problem. How do we reduce GHG emission? How do we reduce the footprint of the current product without thinking about replacing this product, without thinking about disrupting this market and this supply chain. And it is done on a more, let's say, on a silo-based approach within a corporate. And what we are trying to do is to expand the innovation space to cover the disruption of market, the disruption of value chain, by replacing the products that are currently available with products that are less carbon intensive and able to satisfy the same core need as the current product, and move from a silo approach to innovation to a more cluster approach where different dimensions of innovation are addressed. So now, to be able to do this, we need to change completely our perspective in terms of GHG accounting. What we can do currently is GHG accounting that is based at the production side. This we know how to do it. So for example, if you want to determine the GHG emission of a city, what we will do, we will take the boundary of the city and we will look at all the source of emission within the boundary of the city, and we will say, this is the level of emission of the city. Of course, this is completely wrong, because you may have, for example, power plants that are outside of the city, but sending their electricity to the citizen of the city. So the product is consumed within the city, but the production and the related emission are taking place out of the boundary of the city. And you can have many other such type of example that simply show that the production-based approach to GHG accounting we are used to, and that is the current framework, does not always address what we want to do. And definitely, if you want to disrupt market and supply chain, you want to replace a product satisfying a given need with another product satisfying the same need, but with much lower carbon footprint. So this you can only do it if you can do the life cycle analysis of the two products and identify their carbon footprint. So this you cannot do it if you just have a production-based approach. If you are, let's say, at the level of the manufacturer or the company producing the good, it will be very difficult to track the product and know where it is consumed and then take whatever conclusion related to that. So to be able to use this life cycle analysis, we need to come up with a new approach that is the approach I call a consumption-based approach to GHG accounting. So the same, if you want to increase the efficiency in need satisfaction, so for example, if you want to increase the circularity of core need satisfaction value chain through value-added usage of product, for example, you recover a product or you recycle a product with zero carbon footprint, or you extend the lifetime of product or their part, you need also to be able to track that product and some information that are attached to the product. To give a very simple example, let's say you want to recover a byproduct which was not used. It was initially it was considered as waste and was landfill, and it decided to recycle this product and use it for something useful. So if you want to do that, you cannot, you will have to apportion your GHG emission. You will have to attribute your GHG emission to the main product, but also to that byproduct that is now used to satisfy a specific good. But if you are not able to track that information, the amount of GHG emissions that you have allocated to that byproduct, it cannot work, because then everybody can cheat, because you can say, okay, this byproduct is no more a byproduct, I will use it, this is useful. So I take part of my emission, I allocate it to that byproduct, so it's less carbon footprint for my main emission. And if you do not track this byproduct and see what it will be used for, and how it will be able to satisfy a need and display another product and displace another product, you will have a measurement framework that will be flow. So it means that the information, meaning the carbon footprint to attach to the byproduct, need to be attached in a way that nobody will be able to change it, and we need to be able to track that. And we have discussed this in our in our past interaction. If we are working as a cluster, so we will need to attribute the impact to entities that are in the cluster. So if you have only one entity that is contributing to reducing GHG emission, attributing the entire GHG emission to that entity is quite easy. This is what we are doing. But if you have a situation where several entities are contributing to making a climate action possible, like, for example, a policymaker is putting the right policy framework, technology provider, like one of your entities, is working on a technologies that allow to implement a climate action, and then a financier is also requesting less return for green activities, we can say that all these stakeholders are contributing in making the climate action possible. So how do you then, after attribute this impact in terms of GHG emission to this different entity, is another issue that we are facing. So to summarize, 3 new elements that are absolutely important to consider. We want to move away from only sector-based and problem-based to focus more at the need so that we can disrupt market and supply chain. But if you want to disrupt market and supply chain, you need to find a way to track the product and their associated carbon footprint in the entire in their entire life cycle. Or another aspect that is important is increasing the efficiency in need satisfaction by recycling or recovering or repairing. But if you want to do that, if you want to reuse or use byproduct, you need also to attach to this byproduct some information and be able to track them. And finally, you need to attribute, because people will work on cluster, you need to attribute impact to the different element of a cluster. So finally, the last element that is also of importance is how we see green bond moving forward. So green bond is a very useful instrument to redirect finance toward green activities, but the way it is used now is to a large extent problematic, because it provides room for greenwashing, and there are many claims of green bond that are not necessarily green bond. So what we are working on, that some of the reflections that we are having are now focusing on how do we find way to integrate green bond and carbon market, the green bond market and the carbon market. So to do that, we use a new concept, mitigation outcome security, that is a promise to provide, alongside the reimbursement of the bond, a carbon mitigation outcome from the activity financed with the proceeds of the bond. So I have prepared an article on that will be published under Thought Leadership, which is an initiative of UNEP FI and Climate Kick. The launch of the article will be on the 13th of April. Once it will be launched, I will share it with you. And this is exactly what we are proposing in this paper. This is a paper. We are proposing that we integrate the carbon market and the green bond market, and we append to each bond this mitigation outcome security, which is a promise to provide to the buyer of the bond a carbon mitigation outcome. So this is completely different from what we have currently in the green bond framework, because in the green bond framework, current green bond framework, normal bond and green bond are both at the same price, but simply because there is no value addition. Here, what we are proposing is that the green attribute of the activity financed by the bond is transferred from the issue of the bond to the buyer of the bond, and this has value. So the mitigation outcome security that will be held by the financier gets its value from 2 elements. It represents 1 ton of CO2 reduced, and it also represents an amount of finance in US dollar per ton of CO2 used to facilitate an activity generating mitigation outcome that otherwise would not occur. Here again, one important element, we have a mitigation outcome security. It represents 2 things, its value comes from 2 things. The amount of CO2 it has reduced related to this mitigation outcome security, and the amount of finance that was transferred to these green activities. So these 2 information need to be tied to the mitigation outcome security in a way that cannot be falsified, in a way that cannot be changed. And I think you start guessing why some of the digital technologies such as DLT will be needed. what happened?
It seems that, yeah, we're now looking at your email mailbox. Yeah, it's best to minimize that, but I'm not sure.
We are back to.
Yes, we're back to your presentation.
Yeah, so one of the things that we have put in place to be able to make all these things happen is the innovation hub, because we want to have a place where two things will happen. We want a space where the demand for climate solution will be able to meet the supply of climate solution. So to do so, we want to be able to translate this longer term low emission development strategy, NDC, this race to zero, all this commitment and pledge entities are doing into concrete demand for climate solution, and then have in a platform this demand of climate solution alongside with some supply of climate solution in the form of climate solution related to finance, to policy, technology, business model, and so and so. So we are thinking about a hub platform that will be linked to the different hubs that are out there, not only technology hub, innovation hub, but also policy innovation hub, finance innovation hub, business model innovation hub. Now, matchmaking tools that will be powered by artificial intelligence will do the matchmaking between the demand for climate solutions that will be in one database and the supply for climate solutions that will be in another database. I think there was problem in my slide because this one was supposed to be before, yeah, and we jump over. I don't know why. Yeah, now I think this is the last slide. Yeah, the DLT use case. Yeah. So why all these things are relevant to DLT? So as you have seen, for the platform, artificial intelligence will be needed to do the matchmaking between demand for climate solution and let's say a cluster of climate solution, because what we believe is this demand for climate solution will be only satisfied if we bring together different solutions coming from policy, finance, technology, and business model, and so and so. Now, the use case for DLT. So as you have probably anticipated, the two functionalities of DLT that will be completely relevant are immutability and the distributed nature of the DLT. We should not be able to change information that is tied to a product. So for the disrupting market and supply chain, we need to be able to record the carbon footprint across the value chain. So the approach that we are taking, the new GSG accounting framework that we are working on, we are trying to develop, is to really follow the entire value chain of a product and then adding the information related to the carbon footprint at each stage of its development down to the level of the end user, so that we can have all this information in real time. So for example, we start from the raw material, and then the DLT record the GSG emission that is related to the production of the raw material. The raw material is used to produce some, like for example, steel, and then we follow the entire process and add the carbon footprint related to the production of steel, and then the steel is used for let's say construction, and then we still follow and then add the GHG emission related to this step of the production, so that at the end, when the product will be consumed, we will have the GHG emission related to its production in the entire value chain. But this, you can only do it if you are able to collect this information and record it, tied to the product in a way that cannot be manipulated. Same for increasing the efficiency, it needs satisfaction. So the example of byproduct is the example I have provided already. If you are recovering byproduct for future use, you will need to allocate part of your carbon footprint to this byproduct. So we need to be able to track that byproduct and know what it will be used for, and ensure that when it is used, it is displacing a product that has higher carbon footprint. So it means that the carbon footprint allocated to this byproduct need to be tied to the byproduct and recorded in a way that do not allow for any change and or something like that. And also the recording of the time stamp is needed for extended lifetime of product or part of product. Enabling the impact of entity in the cluster of climate actor. This we have discussed this several times. So if you have let's say a policymaker, a financier, a technology provider, a consumer that are all contributing to a climate action, you need here not only to use the functionality of immutability and distributed nature, but also consensus building. They need to agree among themselves on how the GHG emission will be distributed among themselves. And even for also following the carbon footprint along a value chain, you will need also to have some consensus building, because when a product move from, let's say, a producer to a consumer in a value chain, you will need to transfer a GHG emission that was first attributed to the producer to now the consumer. And there also there is a need of recognition, like exactly what happened for Bitcoin when it is transferred from one person to another. The new owner will require recognition that things are transferred now to him. Here it will be the other way around, as the producer will need to have the recognition that the consumer has now taken the responsibility of the GHG emission. So some protocol for consensus building will be needed. So for green bond, the same as I mentioned, we need to record the financial intensity of the green bond in the mitigation outcome security in a way that cannot be changed. So all these aspects will require digital technology, particularly DLT, and for some of them, they are simply not possible without DLT. For example, tracking the carbon footprint along a value chain is just not possible if in the absence of DLT. If you do not use DLT, and this is why currently this production-based approach is used, because simply people are not able to have the right data if they use a consumption-based approach, although a consumption-based approach make more sense for almost all this new type of climate action I have described to you. So I will stop there and yeah, maybe go more in details into any of these different topics if needed be in the Q&A. Back to you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Massamba. Very interesting presentation, to say the least. If I could take co-chair prerogative and sort of raise the first question before opening it up to members, and I'll repeat that if you do have a question for Massamba on the presentation, and I've seen a few from Amy Seidman, so thanks, Amy. please put your questions in the chat box, and that'll help me keep track of them. So Massamba, the point about what is needed versus what is possible, that need-based approach, I think, is very smart. Although my question to you is, how do we define the need? Of course, everyone needs shelter, but to use myself as an example, I live in a little house in my neighborhood, and people in the neighborhood will knock down their little house and put in a house that's 5 times bigger for 3 cars. And so is the need defined on the basis of standard of living or carrying capacity in the aggregate, really, to be sustainable? How do you define need?
So I think your question has 2 aspects. So the first aspect, when I'm talking about defining the need and starting from the need, I mean what is needed for the planet and what is needed for people. So for example, my point here is to say, if you want to tackle climate change, the starting point is what level of effort is needed to be aligned with the 1.5 goal, but not what countries can do based on the technology and the financial instrument and business models that are currently available. So the starting point is what is needed by the planet to address climate change. So the second aspect of your question is, so how do we define what is the right level of need? So we do not want to address that issue because simply it's, let's say, there are several possible responses to that type of question. What we will try to address is a different issue. So what we are saying is, once the need for a person has been defined, what is the best way of satisfying that specific need? So if you want a big, let's say 20-room house, what is the best way of building this 20-room house? Our approach will not be to assess whether you need a 20-room house or not. Our focus will be knowing that you want 20-room house, what is the best way to get this need satisfied while being aligned with the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement. So for example, this is where this type of alternative are coming from. Use maybe sustainable wood rather than cement and so and so. But the only thing that we want to be sure is we are at the core need and not on a solution. Because so for example, if you say my need is to have a building in concrete and steel, 20-floor building made of concrete and steel, you are providing a solution. The only thing that you can say is, I want, for example, this amount of square meter for house, and then the solution come with options that could be aligned with the 1.5 degree goal. But what is the standard core need for an individual? We don't want to enter into that debate because it is sensitive and politically difficult to tackle. It's more political than technical.
Got it. Thanks very much, Massamba. I'll leave my question at that because there's many questions that are starting to come into the chat box. First one that I see is from Amy Seidman, and whether or not there's an API for the database, and how are you managing contributions to the database?
Okay, so we have we want to use 2 approaches, top-down and bottom-up approach. So we want to put in place a working group that will work both on the development of demand for climate solutions. So here, what we are trying to do is to take the commitment and the pledge, like for example, if the EU says we want green post-COVID-19 recovery. This is a pledge. What does it mean in terms of demand for climate solution? So if Shell says, I want to be net zero by 2050, what does it mean in terms of climate solution, demand for climate solution? Or if UK says by 2050 you want to be net zero, what does it mean in terms of demand for climate solution? So we will have a working group working on this issue, and then working also on the supply of climate solution. These are people that will work at the intersection between technology and economy and social and so and so. So this is a top-down approach where we generate both demand and solution. But we want also a bottom-up approach where the general public and organization out there and as an innovation hub will be able to come up with their solution and then upload their own solution to our platform. Now, once we will have one concrete demand for climate solution, the AI tool will select among these top-down as well as bottom-up solutions that have been provided, a combination that will allow to satisfy a given demand. Now, it could be through API, it could be through uploading, it should be, I think all this possibility will be there. So we'll have flexibility to be able to collect information in through different channel. I think the more channel we will have possible, the better it will be.
Thanks again, Massamba. Another question. I apologize to do rapid fire, but there's plenty of questions and time seems to go by too fast on these calls. Next question from Rajinder. What are the key challenges of creating this marketplace for supply and demand of solutions?
So I guess the most difficult aspect is to be able to develop real demand for climate solution that speaks to the provider of climate solution. Because for me, we do not have a bridge between demand and supply of climate solution. When a corporate is doing design, they generally do survey trying to identify what are the need out there of their potential customers. And then they take this need and translate them into solution. So what we are seeing very often is either you do not have a clear demand, so you have just a statement, a wish, that is not really a demand for solution, like I will be net zero by 2050, that's fine, but it needs to be translated now into clear demand for climate solution, or you have a solution that is provided. I want to reduce my the carbon footprint of product X by X%, or I want to reduce the emission of a sector by X%. This is providing solution, and it's not the best way to use what we are trying to do, because you will never see a company designing product based on solution provided by potential consumer. Because if you do it, you will end up seeing that your product will not fly, because just simply it's not their role to provide solution. What they know is what they need, but the solution has to be developed by people that are specialized in providing such type of solution. So I think the most important challenge will be to build this database of demand for climate solution.
Thanks again, Massamba. Just to do a check on your availability, are you able to stay with us the full 90 minutes, like the next half hour?
It's me. You are talking to me?
Yes, I am. Are you staying with? Okay, very good. I have a good question from Alexei that I'd like to delay until we hear all of the issues that members are raising, and it's regarding the coalition's strategy and activities for the year. But I think once we get a good picture of many of the new updates from the various members, then we can come to that question posed to you, because I think it's a very fundamental question, and will help to sort of bridge to the follow-on activities after this web meeting. Then I'm trying to monitor the chat box. I think we're good on the questions currently on this web meeting, but please do post any additional questions in the coalition Slack, just to continue the conversation as it relates to Massamba's presentation specifically. Yeah. And looking forward to learn of any updates through the course of 2021 on this initiative, whether you can share some key points in an upcoming newsletter or publication, or another time that you're available for an update as we get closer and closer to COP in the fall. Thanks very much, Massamba, for that great presentation. Now, if we could move to part 2 of today's web meeting, and that is the member open discussion. I posted in the chat the individuals or members that would like a couple minutes to either give an update, post a question or a topic. And if we don't have a lot of time per topic, unfortunately, because there's quite a few people here. So I'm going to reiterate asking everyone that has a topic to raise to please post it in the Slack. That way, anyone who's not even here to participate can try to interact after this web meeting.
First, Tom, should I stop sharing my screen?
Yes, you could. You could stop sharing your screen. That would be fine.
Yeah.
And I will share my screen. That's just a placeholder. Thanks again, Massamba. Before I invite Miroslav to give an update on some of the work that he's been doing to support the coalition, I'd just like to give an update that the coalition continues to grow. We've recently surpassed 260 organizations, both members and observers like World Bank and other international organizations. And highlight that just last week, the Linux Foundation's Hyperledger Special Interest Group on Climate Action and Accounting officially joined the coalition, bringing with it a pretty large and active community that has many projects ongoing. They're also an open initiative, so anyone who's interested, they're able to join. I can, or I believe they might have already put in links to find out more afterwards. I believe they're just starting their call, unfortunately, an overlap, so I don't believe we'll have them here to give an update. But good to see that the bridges between the coalition, which is a multi-stakeholder community, and various technology-based groups are forming in order to support knowledge transfer, not just digital innovations in the climate space, but climate innovations into the digital space. So it's good to see, but not surprising, more and more interest in the interface of climate and digital innovations. So without further ado, if I could invite Miroslav Polzer to give a brief update on the events that are being planned in terms of applications and what we know in terms of moving targets of whether they're on site or they'll be online, and also a few words about the next newsletter that's starting to be planned. Over to you.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Austria. Tom, could you allow me to share the screen, please?
Absolutely. Let me just make you presenter.
Yes.
Do you see it? Okay.
And applications. Here we are. Share. So I'm working on events and communications, as you know. And so let's go here, slideshow from the beginning. We have several plans already developed in detail. One is a workshop for the Innovate for Climate conference. We have applied for a virtual workshop on digital infrastructure for innovative climate action, very much along the lines of what Massamba has presented today. And once we will have the confirmation regarding the workshop, we will then also let you know and see how we can make it possible that as many people as possible can also contribute to the conversation there and presentations there. We have also submitted an application for the COP26 Green Zone exhibit space, answering a call of the UK COP26 presidency. And we have made a submission together with my organization, Gotcha Foundation New York, for a digital innovation and digital finance for climate neutral cities and citizens application. You see here the links to the documents which I've uploaded on my Google Drive. I will share it then in the chat window so that you can look for the details. And then, as you probably are aware, President Biden is organizing a climate summit on Earth Day 2021. That's the 22nd, and he's adding also the 23rd of April. And this will be the most important climate governance event in this first half of the year 2021. And therefore, we think that it would be good to prepare also a Climate Change Coalition newsletter and then also distribute it beyond only our membership, and to showcase how digital innovation in general can contribute to enhanced climate action, and especially what the Climate Change Coalition is and what its added value is. And then I have here on the presentation also the link to the ACE-AT project, which is an Action for Climate Empowerment innovation project initiated and funded and coordinated by the Austrian Federal Ministry for Climate Action, in which my organization IAI is one of the associated partners, together with the education, communication, and outreach stakeholders community ECOS and ICLE, which is the International Council of Local Environmental Initiatives. And this Action for Climate.support is the homepage, and there you will find more information and also links for participation for an ACE-AT Earth Day Action for Climate Empowerment webinar, which is scheduled to take place on the 28th. It is a very high-profile event with presidential special climate envoy John Kerry being expected as a speaker, Austrian Minister for Climate, UN Climate Change Executive Secretary Patricia Espinosa, Italian Minister for Ecological Transition, and some others. And there the Climate Change Coalition has no formal speaking role, but will present there the Action for Climate Empowerment support structure ideas that we have. And a key flagship initiative is Youth Climate Action Reporting Consortium, in which we will then invite several Climate Change Coalition members to join us, and so that we create a holistic solution ecosystem, which is some kind of a mini D2I2, this data and digital innovation infrastructure, which we have presented at the COP25 in Madrid in 2019. And now we see a great opportunity in this ACE program, and with this ACE project support, we are planning also to get the United States as a partner in the consortium and some other things. And we see great possibilities for successful resource mobilization, and also for space for the digital innovation community to demonstrate that digital innovation, especially blockchain technology, can empower climate action of all relevant stakeholders and especially youth. And in this context, we have also planned an side event to the Science, Technology and Innovation Forum, which will take place 4th and 5th of May. And the side event would be on the 3rd of May on Science, Technology, Innovation for Youth Climate Action Empowerment with the Climate Change Coalition as a co-organizer. Will be broadcasted also on the UN Web TV homepage, like the event that we've had for the UN Charter Day last year. Yeah, this is somehow an outlook. We will send you more information regarding the newsletter. As I said, it should be ready around 20th of April. So if you have contributions that you would like to see featured in the climate in the newsletter, please share it with me. And with this, I stop sharing my screen, and I will send you some of the links in the chat.
Thanks very much, Miroslav. Just also to elaborate, if members are participating at any events or you want to flag them, please flag them in the Climate Change Coalition events and networking channel, and also highlight it to Miroslav in particular, whether it goes into the newsletter for upcoming events, so that we can better coordinate either as it's driven by particular member or by the coalition as a whole. So thanks very much, Miroslav. And as Miroslav indicated, the newsletter should be available around April 20th, so in about 2 weeks. So please don't hesitate to share information with him sooner than later as we get towards formatting and working on that on the newsletter. Thanks again. If I could then, if I could then invite either Catherine Foster or Martin Weinstein, either to give an update from the Open Earth Foundation. I see Catherine. Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Catherine.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. Don't want to take up too much time. I'm not sure if I think Martin's on the call as well, so please speak up if there's anything else to update. I think we just wanted to say hello. We're still coming out of a very busy couple of months, as everyone is here. We're just basically now continuing the research on the integrated climate accounting framework and finance initiatives. And we're participating in quite a few working groups and also putting together the plans for the next stage of the collaborathon. There are no specific details yet, but we promise to provide those going forward and to ensure that the CCC is included, particularly in the collaborathon, and updated on those initiatives. Martin, if you're online, please step in.
Hi, everyone. It's been such a pleasure joining all of you this early morning here in California. Thank you, Massamba, for that amazing presentation. Tom, Miro, for helping the family stay united. And that was great. Thank you, Catherine, as a general update and saying hi. And then also back to a lot of the things that Miro was talking about is how do we all align in the lead up to COP26 and what are the important activities that we could do as a digital innovation community then. So very, very keen to be part of discussions around that and see how can we support that from our end.
Thanks very much, Catherine. And Martin, because we have so many members now in the coalition and it's difficult to squeeze enough into these short calls, when that information is available, if you could please post it into the Slack as at least a way to help support what could be maybe a dedicated call at some point, even if it's not the whole gang, but folks that are particularly interested as specialized calls. Thanks again. I apologize for the brevity of the time slots available. There's so many points to talk about. If I could then invite Amy Seidman, who's been kindly using the chat box effectively, to take a couple minutes to elaborate any of your questions or topics that you've been posting.
Sure. Hey, everybody. That was so wonderful to get that update from the UN. I'm glad to hear all these hairy monster topics are being addressed. One of the things that did come up that I just want to touch upon is we have, someone was asking for, let's create, a system of standards amongst us. And thank you, Tom, for putting in some of the data interoperability. So I think that's something that would be great if we could at some point talk about. I think it's really important to all of our works to align this. And so I do recommend being a part of the Yale Open Labs Collabathon so that we can create that cohesion. The things that I would like to talk about have to do with some things that have been coming up. The CCC DAO, Climate Change Coalition DAO, that has been something that came up over the years, and we've been dawdling, and it's really a hot topic. So what should we do about it? I've posted something in the DAO channel, and then also on the general channel. I'll post it again because it's probably buried. But there's a collaborative document. There's not much in it. And it's all of our opportunity to come together and figure out, what do we want to do? Do we want to create some kind of a lottery that we can fund different projects? I know that we do need some operating capital for this group. So this might be an interesting mechanism. It then becomes an interesting question of who owns it. How do we all contribute? How do we create fairness? So your input is really, really important. The second thing that I want to offer, last time, I don't know if there's a way to share my screen, but I can create a, well, I'm not going to bother because we don't have a lot of time.
We don't have a lot of time. Yeah.
But last time I presented on the work that we're doing, which is the mapping of SDGs to climate contributions. We're also adding other features, the ability to create digital climate credits with some partners interested in connecting the dots between all of you. So we're going to do this as a contribution to the CCC, and everybody will get a place on the map associated with the CCC, as well as their own SDG fingerprint and SDG over time. We have a timescape, so if you've been doing something over many years, it would be really great for us to help support you in what you're doing. So we're offering that to everyone in this group, as well as some other key groups, so that we can start to provide some resources and more positive plugs for groups in the CCC, as well as mechanisms to start to connect those dots together. Because as Massamba mentioned, there's, the level 3 is definitely something we have to deal with. The last thing is that I was gifted a conference platform that's a full-blown video chat. We can do everything. And one of the things, we didn't have enough time to see if we could use it for this meeting, but it's available. And if people are running ecosystems around these topics, I want to make that available. And we're also toying with creating an investor showcase and customer showcases. This probably won't happen until later, a few months from now, just because we need to create that container from a logistical standpoint. But anybody who has project-ready projects are looking for investment and clients, it would be great if you could just ping me in that thread. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you,
Amy.
Tom, for everything, and Miro. Super glad to be here, and Massamba and all. So.
Thanks for all your contributions, including on the Slack as well. Wow, we are getting quite a few notes in the chat. I apologize. I'm going to try my best to try to coordinate these updates. If Jim Whitestone is still with us, he had pinged me previously about an update related to the Task Force for Scaling Voluntary Carbon Markets, and he's also the Climate Change Coalition's Canada team leader. So Jim, if you could take a couple minutes, please.
Yeah, I'll resurface publicly now that I've had my coffee and I'm fully dressed. So just very quickly, and what I'll do to make it easier, I'll keep it very short, but maybe I'll send something to Miroslav for the newsletter in April. So as some of you may know, I've been following along the Task Force on Scaling Voluntary Carbon Markets, and fed in some comments in the fall. which then resulted in us being included as the Climate Change Coalition in the consultative group to that particular work. So I also posted a blueprint that the task force released in end of January to Slack, laying out sort of their plans to help scale this market. There was one recommendation of particular interest to the Climate Change Coalition, which was their recommendation number 13 for those of you who've read it. They talked about the role of a digital project cycle to help improve the speed, efficiency, accuracy, integrity of the market and the role it played. And what they proposed, and it doesn't show up in some of their near-term work plan, but longer term, they talk about the role that Climate Change Coalition can play in helping to put in place some kind of a governance structure over all the work and common standards. This goes to Amy's point. So that's something that we think we could contribute to this work so that all these platforms can kind of talk to one another and interact. So they're busy now heading towards the summer, obviously trying to target COP26 in Glasgow in the fall. Focus largely on stakeholder engagement to socialize some of the work of the task force and engage the broader community in helping to inform it. Doing a lot of work on governance. Again, and then also doing work around trying to standardize the market, come up with a standardized contract to really allow sort of carbon markets and associated offset projects to scale, ideally with an eye to doing something that could be traded on exchange to really get the volume up and move it out of over the counter onto exchange. And then they're also trying to do some things around the integrity by way of coming up with some common core carbon principles. And they're not going to redo the work. Some of the members of CCC are very much embedded in the working groups. Certainly the voluntary standards are all there actively, and they're also doing work in the digital innovation space as well too, as you know. So I'll contribute this to the newsletter, more fulsome update. I'll continue to post to Slack where there may be opportunities to feed into this work, but certainly in the area of governance and standards, that's something that to the extent we want to do something around within CCC, that may be something we can kind of feed into the task force work over the medium to longer term, and that would be a valuable contribution. So I'll stop there, and then you'll see more service in the newsletter.
Thanks very much, Jim. I appreciate the nicely timed update. I see we have about 10 minutes left, and we have Neo Lin, who's our Asia Pacific team leader with ECO2 next. Then Tom DeBlock of AIOTI in Europe, and then Joseph Pallant, and then lastly but not least, Alexei Shadrin, who has both an update and then that final question to you, Massamba, that I've been waiting to the end. So if I could ask either Neo, okay, Neo, you ready to go? Please keep it to 1-2 minutes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Tom. As you know, China is going to be the carbon offset country on the 2060. So we start to develop our domestic market with the My Carbon app. We try to educate citizens how important of climate change. And we are also preparing our blockchain solution called Eco2 Ledger. It's on the testnet phase and will complete on the second half year in 2021. And our carbon trading department, we want to increase our experience in the voluntary carbon market, and we believe that China will be the biggest carbon market in future. So we try to develop a local market with the latest technology. So that's why we use the technology and carbon trading to combine together into the Chinese market.
Thanks very much, Neo, and also for posting many of your points in the Slack as well, so that others can follow up with you. Nick, did you have a quick follow on? I see you unmuted.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Tom. Just very briefly, I just want to say thank you to Alexei and everyone at EverCity for the work on the SDG Finance Bulletin. I've been communicating with Christy on that. And if you need that in Chinese in the future, just let me know and we can get that for you. So that's all. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Nick. If I could then ask Joseph Pallant to please give an update related to Bitmo.
Hi, everybody. Great session. Massamba, really loved a lot of those concepts that you brought up. I think those are really quite some deep ones. At Blockchain for Climate Foundation, we've been soldiering forward and using sort of a lot of the COVID isolation time to work on the development of our tech platform. So at the end of last year, we kind of had an MVP of our Bitmo platform, and now it's really moved to beta. What we are trying to create with this platform is a tool for national parties to issue and exchange ITMOs on the blockchain, adding the B in front of that to call it a Bitmo. And so we're seeking national party representatives to join our national party working group. We're trying to get around a half dozen to help us vision what they want to see next out of the platform, what they're allergic to, what they like, and try to walk people along the path to becoming champions and eventual users of this platform. Right now, we're live on the Rinkeby testnet using ERC 1155. And so also, if you're with the National Party, would be really happy to demo this with you. And it's really exciting because now we can take all of the core elements of an offset, mint them sort of right on the surface of your NFT. So you can see that in OpenSea, you can see that wherever you view NFTs. And then you can also click and access all of the, we've called them off-chain documents, though now they're actually on-chain on IPFS. And so you can see all of that validation, verification, certification documents. And so we're trying to take this role kind of at the end of a long process of whatever warehousing and in-country development of those mitigation outcomes are, and allow it to be minted into a common system where it can be exchanged. And it's really exciting because you can do this both on our platform and then also see it kind of live in the wild on OpenSea. So if you're engaged with a national party that might be a natural buyer, seller, or market maker in sort of the ITMO world, would love to get in touch. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks very much, Joseph. A nice taste teaser. I hope you'll follow it up with putting some more information into the Slack, because I can tell people are super interested, including myself, to learn more. So thanks again for being brief with the update as well, due to time limitations. Next, can I invite Tom DeBlock of AIOTI to give a quick update?
Yes, you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. Okay, nice seeing you, Tom. Also, Miro, it's been some time. So for the other people, I just so I'm a totally a committed member of CCC, but I'm not very much active because I'm very active in AOTI, and that's the point I wanted to make. We have a new wave in the, so we also had recent re-elections. So I've been reconfirmed in my role as the chairman of the working group on distributed ledger technologies. We are on the merge between the fancy startups, the geek space from the early blockchain believers, and then the legacy industry and a lot of industrial players, very big ones also. They kind of, we have this magic between both worlds. So what I would like to offer to our organization, the CCC, is actually I even already pushed it internally. We have a new concept of test beds. And for myself, I'm also involved in some of these startups. So what we want to do, and what I think must do, because I listened very carefully also to the first speaker, I don't know his Massamba. So he's very right, because we can have the best ideas, we can have the best startups, but if you cannot demonstrate, if you cannot link with a legacy, you have no ways you're going to make it. You can have the best energy use case, you know, you solve some issues, but if you don't have the boots on the ground, and if you're not integrated with the legacy industry of that specific vertical, in that case, for example, the energy, you have no way of taking any part of the market. So AOTI is actually representing that market in Europe. So I think it's very important, and I would really like some practical engagement with members of CCC, because I offer the floor actually to demonstrate DLT-empowered use cases on the AOTI testbeds, which has a direct line with European Commission, with stakeholders in the European industry. So I think this is possibly a step up for the use cases to show maybe interoperability, to show some performance. We have amazing stuff upcoming in the next 2 years. We're gonna demonstrate Cardano on the European platform and so on. It's crazy. I really love it because I'm still half with one leg in the geek space, early Bitcoin space, and then now in this industrial context, so, which is a big opportunity. Secondly, and I'm gonna take it very fast, I also have a new role in the EU OS, which is a Standard ICT initiative, OS standing for Observatory for Standardization. So very amazing members there. So I'm chairing a working group on data interoperability. We're actually putting the agenda also for the policymaker, European Commission, in the mechanism of fundings up to 10 to 15K. We're actually promoting some subjects to that agenda. So one of these subjects is obviously also climate impact related. So any one of you guys organization who has input for the standardization element, specific data interoperability related to any kind of challenge in the space of climate action, please get in touch with me or with Tom Baumann or Miro to get in touch with me afterwards. We are related. We are on WhatsApp together. So please reach out to me, and I think we can make some difference there. So that's all for now.
Thanks very much, Tom. And if I could ask you as well to make a post into the Climate Change Coalition Slack, that would help to get more people connected to you, because there's only 3 of us on WhatsApp, but we'd like to get everyone into the Slack. So thanks again. Last but not least, thanks again. If I could ask Alexei to give an update not only on the publication, but to also pose your questions to Massamba related to the coalition strategies and activities for this year. I think that'd be a good way to wrap up today's call. And I apologize that we'll go a few minutes over. Hopefully 5 minutes doesn't complicate people's schedule too much. Alexei? I see. Oh.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Yeah, hi Tom, hi everyone. Can you make me a presenter so I could share my screen, please?
Here it comes. Do you see it?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, do you see my screen now?
Might take a second to pop up. We see it.
Yeah, great. So really happy to see and hear everyone. And will not take too much time, so I will just start with some news from our side. So last December, we finished the open source protocol, blockchain protocol for issuance of green and sustainability linked bonds. And we are showing demos right now, so it's working. We already have some ideas how to improve it. It literally is a protocol that helps you to program any sustainability-oriented bond. So it could be a green bond, it could be a sustainability-linked bond, it could be a sustainability-linked bond which is like more on the project level than on the organizational level. So there are many options, and it's all in line with what Massamba has presented. So the interest rate is changed according to the impact measurements that are being taken from the project side. This is very interesting, and we have a lot of ideas to develop this further, to link it with carbon credits, and we are doing some regular demos, so some of you have seen them. We're maybe ready to make a demo on the level of Climate Change Coalition and discuss what we can do together to advance this concept and match it with what Massamba is promoting. So the other thing is the digital SDG Finance Bulletin, and I'm giving you some highlights of the second issue. It's not fully ready yet, but we will distribute maybe the draft designed version this week, and the final bulletin will be released next week. So this issue is a little bit different. It has like three, the main topic is green digital recovery, and we have like three blocks. So here is the first issue that made a lot of success, and I think it contributed a lot to advancement of our topic. So in the second issue, we have a new section called interviews. We've interviewed two people. First one is Simon Zadek, who was leading the UN Secretary General's task force on digital SDG financing. So we have made an interview with him. It's very interesting. Then we have an overview of the report released by the task force this summer, and also it really makes a lot of clarity on the topic of digital SDG finance, and we try to take the best highlights from there. So then we have another interview of our member Elliot Chan, who is unfortunately not present today, but it was important for us to understand how investors actually look at the digital innovations and what are the barriers, and how we can attract more venture investment into our space, into the projects of Climate Change Coalition members. And then we have the third section, which is an overview of projects by the Climate Change Coalition members. Thank you to all the members who contributed to this issue, especially to Eco2 Ledger guys, and of course Tom and Miroslav, and also and also Joseph. So Joseph also helped us to refine the text itself. So this issue showed the power of the Climate Change Coalition members working together, and I hope that it will be even better than the first one, and that the third one will be even better and will have more use cases and new formats. So this is actually what I wanted to say about our activities. And my question to Massamba will be related to our common strategy and the key action points this year, because I think our community has shown a lot of enthusiasm and results that we made together. And this year is very important. So it would be great to understand what is our strategy and how we can contribute to our common goals. What is the sound?
I'll try to meet that.
There's some ceremony there.
Well, I think it's a very good starting point for Massamba's speech.
It's great.
So.
It's great.
Anyway.
So, no, thank you, Alexei, and thank you all for your feedback and input. I just wanted to address one issue very quickly before I jump to your question, just to follow up on what Amy said. I guess you all understood from what I have presented that the approach that we are taking now is to try as much as possible to mainstream climate action into SDG action. Because when we are saying we are no more asking the question how to decarbonize, but the question is how to develop in a way that is aligned with the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement. What we mean by that is we want now to have climate action mainstream into SDG action. So the two need to be the same, but not have, for example, in a country, a development strategy that is completely independent from the NDC or the longer-term low-emission development strategy. Yeah, now responding to your question, Alexi, I guess the strategies that we will have to build will be definitely participatory and inclusive, so we'll build it together. Maybe I have some idea on the vision, but definitely, and on the process that we need to follow, but definitely we will need to think about it together. And maybe what needs to be done is in the coming weeks and months, some effort need to be put working on, let's say, a strategy that does not need to be a finalized strategy. Like what I'm trying to say is we need to have an idea of what the strategy should be, and then we start implementing, we learn from lessons, and we further improve. We do not have the time currently to wait to have something that is perfect before acting. So we need urgent action. So we need prompt action. So it means that we need to have a first initial idea of what we would like to do, and then take it from there and further improve by learning from what we have seen on the ground. So I think for me, the most important thing is for us to maybe review the future we want to build together. This is important from time to time to stop and then think again about what is it that we want to build together. And also, what are the expectations out there? Not only current expectation, but we need also to anticipate future expectation. What do we think in the coming 5-10 years could be the expectation of the stakeholders out there? And this is what will allow us to have, let's say, a strategy that is forward-looking, because it will address the needs of tomorrow. And once we will identify what are these needs and where they are meeting the future that we want to build, we can come up with a strong strategic goal that we can then develop into different type of action. But one element that is, and this is maybe my personal input to this future we want to build, I guess what brings us together into CCC is that we all want to contribute. This is our common denominator. We want to contribute in addressing climate through the work that we are doing. And to do so, I think we need to be closer to the needs that are out there. And I think it was said also before me, this bridging between the need, and this is why also we think that this demand for climate solution is very important, so that we have a better understanding of what is it that is out there that we can contribute to solving. One approach, but this is just a possibility. This is one option that will help not only increase the level of collaboration and also bring us closer to the issue, could be to build a platform, actually, to have a CCC platform where we will have, let's say, solutions that can, digital solution, because I think the specificity is here that we are working all in digital aspect, and even it could be more focused on DLT related solution that could later on be linked to this global UNFCCC platform, because definitely we will need to have digital solution. As I have highlighted in my presentation, there are many important challenges that can only be addressed if we can leverage DLT. So for 2021, one of the focus could be, but here again, I'm saying could be, This is something that needs to be confirmed when we will be clear about what is the future we want to build and what are the needs that are out there. It could be to build together a platform that will be a CCC platform, which focus will be to produce climate solutions that are related to digital and maybe more specifically DLT, and then link it to this UNFCCC global platform. And what will be good is we need to do it in a way that is very open. So if we can manage to coalesce other initiative around that initiative so that we have only one point where digital solutions are coming from for climate, it would be excellent. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it responds to your question, but to summarize, we will need to build the strategy, but I have just one hint that need to be maybe put with some other proposal and discuss together. Back to you, Tom.
Thanks very much, Massamba, and also Alexei, thanks for that completely timely, appropriate question, and also all of your work on the publication. I think a perfect example of how the grassroots member-driven leadership, really, whether it's getting the word out, your innovations, I think there's a multitude of platforms among the coalition members that could be leveraged into what you were just describing, Massamba, because there's just so many dimensions to it, whether it's data and IoT or the standards and on and on and on, like the finance. And so the structure that we initiated with the founding meeting of let's organize ourselves into topical teams. Sometimes they're regional and have many topics that are being integrated at a regional level. You know, I'm looking at so many team leaders on this call right now that it's you're all leaders of the coalition, at least in those topical spaces. And our success really is that continued leadership effort and the energy at innovating. And as you were saying, Massamba, everybody here wants to contribute towards this solution, but it is a really extensive solution. And so I know we're already 15 minutes over time, so I'll although I see Miroslav, you're just itching to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, please. Thank you very much. It's quite an important strategy question. Also, it would be good to have Massamba's point on it, and also members included, is the topic of the digital innovation community. At the COP25, we have seen that there is now really the recognition from the parties and all relevant stakeholders that digital innovation is the key to enhanced climate action. And Climate Change Coalition has the focus on blockchain technology. And so we said, let's create a digital innovation community where also IoT, artificial intelligence, and other digital innovation aspects will have also a platform to connect and to bring solutions into the UNFCCC process. And so my question to Massamba, do you think that this digital innovation community initiative is welcome and we should pursue further? Because when we've sent then the request to the Climate Change Secretariat to recognize this community, we didn't get a response. So I thought perhaps it's something that's in conflict with other strategies of the Secretariat or so, or should we go further for this? Also because Climate Change Coalition is the cornerstone, is the main pillar of the digital innovation community, but for really the whole digital innovation, enhanced climate action to function, we need also other dimensions and solutions, and therefore this question. And I hope not take it too much time.
Thanks, Miroslav. Massamba, would you like to respond quickly?
Yeah, very quickly. I think there are two aspects. One is, the need for recognition. From my perspective, to be able to collaborate on this specific issue, there is no need for any, let's say, formal recognition by the UNFCCC process or the head of the UNFCCC. So definitely this innovation digital community could be exactly the platform that I was describing. What I was saying is, if there is possibility to have a platform focusing on digital solution, definitely it will make sense to have this platform connected to the global UNFCCC platform that we are trying to implement. And now the second thing is probably when you send your message, the top management and everybody was not that, let's say, focus on the need for innovation to support climate. So now I think it's very clear in everybody's mind that innovation is absolutely needed. We cannot achieve the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement without innovation, and digital innovation need to be part of the toolbox. So definitely there is space for this innovation community on digital that you were mentioning, and it could be the same as the platform. For me, why I prefer a platform, this is because this is something concrete around which people will collaborate. It's not just a community. So we will form the community around concrete action. This is why I have proposed the term of platform. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Massamba and Miroslav, and thanks to everyone for making today's call a great web meeting. Apologies that we could keep going on, and I think we just need to schedule another call in the near future as well. Please follow up with Miroslav to get any points into the newsletter, which will be distributed more broadly. Please post your topics in the Slack, whether it's the general channel or any of the topic specific channels. This meeting's been recorded. We'll post the link in the Slack, but also in the YouTube so that the link can be accessible from our Facebook page or the LinkedIn group page, because we have so many other stakeholders beyond, I think, the organizational members, and sometimes there's many individuals from each organization participating. Again, please do it as quickly as your schedules permit so that we can get the newsletter out later on this month, because of Earth Day and all the attention that'll be focused around this month, and likewise the publication from Alexei. And with that, thank you very much for your time. I hope you have a great week. Stay well, and look forward to see you again soon. Bye for now, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.